Part 1. The Confession. 30 years of marriage sound like a finish line, until you realize it's just another lap. Evelyn was drying a pan when David said, very evenly, "I had an affair." No preface, no stammer, just a sentence placed between them like a blade on a table. She set the pan down. When? 3 months, he said. It's over. With who? A woman from work. Maya. He watched her the way a man watches a stove he isn't sure he turned off. Evelyn didn't cry. She'd spent a career in an archive learning the difference between shock and information. Shock you feel. Information you file. "Why tell me now?" she asked. "Because I couldn't carry it anymore." The relief in his face was indecent. She wanted to tip the table, watch the blade skid to the floor, make a sound that wasn't polite. Instead, she said, "Okay," as if he'd told her the forecast. And later, when he slept in the guest room, she walked through their house touching things. The dent on the banister from the year Jason ran the toy truck too hard. The drawer that never closed. The paint chip behind the refrigerator. 30 years of minor repairs and ignored cracks. The house hummed with a sound she hadn't heard before, like static behind drywall. Part 2. Inventory. On Sunday, she made an inventory of inconsistencies. It was what she did for a living. Find the gaps and write the margins. June 1820. David had been on a fishing trip with Jason. Photos of striped bass, a sunburn, 2 men not looking at the camera. July 4. They'd hosted the neighborhood barbecue. David flipped burgers all afternoon in a red apron Evelyn hated. August 12. He'd driven his sister to radiation. Stayed overnight. Evelyn had the hospital parking stubs. When, exactly, had he found a pocket of time to betray her? She didn't ask him. People given timelines just adjust their lies to fit them. She went through the laundry basket instead. At the bottom, a receipt folded into a damp square. Suncrest Storage Unit B. 17. Paid cash. No date stamp. Just a month. June. She stared at the company logo, a yellow sun, breaking through a roll-up door, and felt something unclench in her mind. Affairs didn't usually require storage. That afternoon, David suggested a drive. "Get out of the house," he said, voice careful. "Later," she said. "I have work." She did not. She had the receipt. Part 3, Unit B-17. Suncrest Storage was a spine of orange doors along a strip of scrub highway. The manager, a man with a ponytail and a soft drink, barely looked up when she walked in. "I need to check my unit," she said, and slid the crumpled receipt across the counter with a practiced, bored smile that suggested this was the 100th time she'd done it. He glanced. B-17. Cash, huh? Gate code's the last 4 digits of your phone. She typed 0417 without thinking her birthday. The gate shuddered open like a slow eyelid. Inside B-17. A metal shelf, a plastic bin, a folded tarp, a smell of dust and something sweeter. Evelyn snapped on her phone light. In the bin, a man's jacket she didn't recognize, a sealed envelope, and a prepaid cell phone, the cheap kind drugstores keep near the batteries. She didn't open the envelope. Not yet. She pressed the phone's power button. The screen lit and bloomed with notifications that had nowhere to go. Voicemail. 7. Messages. 13. All from a single contact saved as C. The most recent text. Sunday, 8 p.m. Pier Road. No more delays. Another. Older. "We're not ghosts, David. We don't disappear because you need us to." And one from months back. "I kept your shirt. It still smells like rain." Evelyn felt the floor tilt, not with jealousy, but with the sense of a movie screen pulling away from its frame. An affair is a solvable problem. This was not. Someone had given her husband a second life, with a second sound. She opened the envelope. Inside were photos, 3 prints on matte paper. David at a lakeside bar, head bent toward a woman whose face was caught mid-turn. Not young, not Maya. A thin scar marked the woman's upper lip like an accent mark. On the back of the last photo, a note in tight handwriting: "Pay what's owed, or tell her." Her first thought was ugly and honest. Tell me what? Her second was colder. Owed to whom? She took the phone, the photos, the envelope. She left the jacket. Part 4. The witness. At home, she put the burner phone in the flower bin, a trick she'd taught herself years ago after reading about signal shielding. Then she searched Pier Road. There were several. The one that felt right was out by Lake Brindle, a place they used to take Jason when he was small to throw stones and watch the water pretend to be the ocean. At 7:50 p.m., she sat in the car by the pier and watched shadows lengthen into shapes. A truck pulled in, idled, left. A couple argued in murmurs, then kissed, then laughed. At 8:12, a second car rolled up, lights off. A woman stepped out, face hooded by the evening, posture familiar in its tension. The scar caught the last of the light. It was the woman from the photo. Evelyn's pulse went strange. She didn't get out. She lowered her window an inch and listened. The woman made a phone call. "You're late," she said. Again. She waited, then hung up, then called again. "No more delays, David. We had a deal." Tell her. She looked straight toward Evelyn's car as if pulled by a thread. Then she shook her head, pocketed the phone, and walked to the end of the pier, where the boards sounded like bones under shoes. Evelyn followed at a distance she hoped looked accidental. The lake was black glass. The woman stood with her hands on the rail. "Evelyn," she said without turning. The name landed in Evelyn's stomach like a small stone. "We've met?" "In a manner," the woman said. "I thought you might come instead of him. He's good at outsourcing his courage." Evelyn came closer. The scar made the woman's mouth look perpetually on the verge of saying don't. "What do you want from my husband?" Evelyn asked. "What he promised," the woman said. "What he took? Money? Time? A life? Who are you?" "Charlotte," she said. "But he called me Char." Evelyn tasted something metallic. "He told me it was Maya." Charlotte laughed, a sound like a hinge that hadn't been oiled. "I'm sure he did." She reached into her coat and pulled out a small, familiar object, the same burner model, a twin to the one in Evelyn's flower bin. "He'll ignore this one too. He thinks ignoring is the same as ending." "What did he take?" Evelyn asked again. Charlotte turned, leaned on the rail, and examined Evelyn's face with a mixture of pity and professional interest. "Do you want the answer that lets you go home and sleep?" she said. "Or the one that won't let you stop looking at the water for the rest of your life?" "I want the true one." Charlotte nodded, as if that were both expected and unfortunate. "We met at group," she said. "Grief group. He told you it was the gym, I'm guessing? Men prefer sweat to sorrow." "My mother had just died," Evelyn said, instinctively. "Mine too," Charlotte said. "We talked about the edges of loss, how people pretend it gets smaller. It doesn't. Your life just grows around it like a tree around a nail." Evelyn felt the static in the walls again, louder. And then your husband decided the best way to keep grief company was with a second life." Charlotte toyed with the phone, weighing it. "He rented the storage. He bought the phones. He said he didn't want to lie to you, which is the funniest lie of all." "Blackmail?" Evelyn asked, finally voicing the cheap word. "If I had wanted money," Charlotte said, "I would have asked for it. I wanted him to keep his promises." "What promises?" "That he would go to the police," Charlotte said. The words were dropped gently, like a doctor laying instruments on a tray. "That he would tell them about the night on the water, the boy, the hit, the way the boat kept moving because he panicked." She watched Evelyn watch her. "You didn't know." "No," Evelyn said, and found the world had tilted again. But this time the angle didn't feel temporary. "What boy?" Charlotte looked past her to the parking lot, almost relieved. "He was 18, drunk. They were both drunk, your husband and his brother. It was years ago, before the pier cameras. They told themselves The lake swallowed things on purpose, like a priest. He meant to confess, she added gently. He really did. Evelyn felt the night air inside her lungs like needles. And you? I saw, Charlotte said. From the old boathouse. I thought the water would take care of it. It didn't. It just kept the secret louder and louder. I tried to live with it. Then the boy's mother started coming to group. Charlotte's voice wavered for the first time. She never said his name out loud. People think that makes it smaller too. Why my husband? Evelyn asked. Why us? Because he was the one who cried when it rained, Charlotte said. Because he carried it so close to the surface, I could see the shape of it through his shirts. Because he said he'd tell you. She pocketed the phone. He told you something else instead, didn't he? Yes, Evelyn said. He told me about another woman. Charlotte nodded like a teacher who had expected the wrong answer. That's his way. He mistakes pain for penance. She pushed off the rail. You didn't get the clean version you wanted. I'm sorry. She started to leave, then paused. If he finally tells the whole truth, it will try to drown him. He should have told it long ago, in shallow water. And if he doesn't? Charlotte looked at the lake. Then you will spend the rest of your life listening for a sound only you can hear. She walked away. The boards did their bone sound. Evelyn stood until her hands felt like empty gloves. Part V. The safe. That night, she didn't confront David. She opened the safe he assumed she didn't know how to open. Birthdays are lazy passwords. Inside, passports, a will, an envelope labeled Brindle. She didn't touch it. The choice felt ceremonial, like whether to look at a body. David came home late. Careful steps. He paused at the kitchen door as if waiting for permission to enter his own life. We should talk, he said. In a minute, she said. Do you remember the storm in '09? When Jason was away at camp and the power went out? He blinked. Sure. You told me you were stuck at the office. Trees down. They were. Was that the night? She asked. His mouth opened, closed. For a second she saw him without his face, just a man-shaped question mark. Who told you? Evelyn didn't answer. She watched him stand on the edge between the two worlds. Every married person knows can open under a kitchen chair at any time. The world in which you keep living, and the world in which you find out what you've been living on top of. I wanted to tell you, he said. But you didn't. I told you about Maya. You told me about a softer sin, she said. You gave me a smaller betrayal so I would hold it like a hot stone and drop the larger one in the lake. He put his hands on the table and for a moment she thought he would shove it, scatter the blade, make a noise. Instead, he Saturday. I'm tired, he said, of the weight. Then put it down, she said. He looked at the safe he'd noticed. She'd left it open, and his shoulders dropped, the way a person's shoulders drop when they step onto an honest scale. It was an accident, he said, and the word sounded obscene. He came out of nowhere. We tried to pull him in. My brother jumped in. The current. Stop, she said. Don't tell me the kindest possible version. Tell me the one that lets the furniture stay upright. He was very quiet. Finally, we left, he said. We didn't call. I told myself someone else would find him. I told myself his family would prefer not knowing to knowing the wrong way. I was wrong about that. I was wrong about everything. She waited for anger, for disgust, for the clean feeling of a decision. None came. Instead, she felt an ache as old as the house. The knowledge that the man she'd built decades with had a room inside him she had never been allowed to enter. What do you want me to do? He asked. Confess, she said. Not to me. He nodded, as if he'd been rehearsing the gesture in case she asked. And if I don't? He asked, so quietly she almost missed it. Then we will live with a noise only we can hear, she said. And we will learn how to pretend it is silence. Part VI. The choice. At dawn, she drove him to the station. He held the Brindle envelope. Streetlights blinked out like polite hostesses. On the steps, he stopped. You'll hate me, he said. If I do this. and it ruins everything. I already hate the part of you that didn't, she said. Then softer, I don't know what happens after. That's the honest answer. He nodded. He took 2 steps up. He stopped again. He turned and looked past her at the waking town. She thought of Charlotte's warning. Truth will try to drown him. She thought of the boy's mother. Name unknown. Setting a place at a table she couldn't bear to clear. She thought of 30 years and the static in the walls. David said, Evelyn, if I walk in there, we don't get to choose our ending. If you don't, she said, we don't get to choose our beginning. He took the next step. A police cruiser pulled to the curb. 2 officers went inside. Heads down, ordinary as weather. Somewhere a siren rose and fell. Unrelated. Or maybe not. A woman across the street walked her dog and didn't look at them at all. David stood on the threshold. He lifted his hand as if to push a heavy door. He looked back once, like a man on a pier deciding whether to call out to someone already in the water. Evelyn, he said. She raised her hand. Not goodbye. Not yet. He pushed. The door gave. Whether he walked through, she could not honestly say, not now, not ever. She only knows that the static in the walls changed pitch, and the house inside her either quieted at last or learned a new sound it could live with. And the lake, miles away, kept its surface perfectly still, as lakes do when they have already decided which truths they will return and which they will keep.